Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, and you're listening to Incredible Life Creator Podcast. My guest today is Sarah Martens. Sarah is a transformative life coach and mentor focusing on young adults as well as a speaker. She comes from a family of coaches and mentors and became a life coach due to self-development being her number one passion. Sarah has a background in journalism and television, and though she didn't end up pursuing that career path, she uses the skills she developed in video editing and impromptu speaking for her inspirational video content. Sarah also has a background in pageants. She placed top 10 in Miss Universe Canada 2018, as well as commercial modeling, working in Asia. So welcome, Sarah.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it sounds like you've had quite a journey already, and congratulations on the pageant and Miss Universe. That's just a huge accomplishment already.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was a long journey and there were a lot of things that happened, but yes, it was a great journey.
So why don't you start out by just telling everyone a little bit about you, like where you grew up, kind of how you got to where you are now.
Okay, perfect. So I'm 27 years old. I grew up in Mississauga, which is just outside of Toronto, Canada. I'm not sure where most of your listeners are listening from, but yes, just in Mississauga. And I went to school for journalism, mainly for the writing aspect, because I always loved writing. Since I was little, I always said, I'll be an author and a writer. And so I went into the journalism program, but it was broadcast journalism. And I think I didn't anticipate at the time how much I'd be in front of the camera. So I started to grow into being in front of the camera and enjoying that, but also still wanting to do behind the scenes documentaries and still writing. And I interned a little bit in television. And then after that, for financial purposes, I decided to kind of go into the corporate world. And I left my sense of creativity for a little bit, for about 5 years. And then that's where I actually started. I worked as a licensed insurance broker. And so that was for almost 5 years. And it was a great opportunity. It was a smart choice at the time just to save. And I was able to purchase a condo, which was amazing for me at the time. And then after that, well, during that time, I was just feeling a sense of I wanted more creativity. And also during that time, I was working a lot on myself with self-development. So I started getting into some modeling and acting, and I did that part-time while I was still working as an insurance broker. And then I had this opportunity actually to go to Asia, to India and to the Philippines for modeling. So I left my comfortable corporate position, which I loved so much and kept me safe. And I traveled for a little bit for modeling. The year after that, I decided to do a pageant, Miss Universe Canada 2018. And during that time, that's when I really had to figure out what makes me feel like I'm deserving of winning a title, because I have to be able to offer something. And so that's where, even though I had been working on self-development for all of those years, that was probably the greatest self-development project I had during the pageant, was figuring out what is it that I have to offer, and what do I really want with my life, and what do I want to take away from this pageant. And that's when I realized it's because I was able to change my own life with self-development that I wanted to coach others and show them how I did that. And like you said earlier, both of my parents are mentors, and they mentor couples and individuals. So it kind of just came naturally to me, and also through my own journey.
Yes. And tell me a little bit more about when you're talking about self-development, because that's a very broad category. What made you go into that, deep search, and what types of self-development did you pursue that helped you?
Yeah. So I guess it was always the way that my parents always spoke was about healing and about going to counseling when I was younger, and reading books and that sort of thing. But it didn't really resonate with me until I was 21. And I think the reason why is because, so for me at that time, I had a lot of toxic relationships that I was in. So, and that was with friendships, that was with romantic relationships, that was with even the way that I would feel colleagues treating me. And I knew that it all came back to me. And I didn't realize that at the time. So I was kind of a victim of my circumstances, where I would say, my boss is, speaking to me in a demeaning way, or my boyfriend isn't treating me great, my friends are doing this. And it was all the verbiage was, this is happening to me. And finally, after just years of this happening, I would say from when I was maybe 12 until 21, I was kind of living in that victim mentality, and it was getting darker and darker. And I finally came to a place when I was 21 where I just had so many dark thoughts. And I just realized at that point, I need to do something different. Otherwise, nothing's going to change. And the first book that I picked up, actually, which really changed my life, was You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay.
Yes.
And it is, again, you can always read something and you don't have to agree with every single portion of the teaching or the book, but I took out of it what changed my life. And primarily that was that everything, all the circumstances in my life currently were just resulting from what I believed about myself and unforgiveness. So I realized that all of my limiting beliefs from a child, the unforgiveness I had towards whoever it was in my family, I was meeting those people over and over again in different relationships. So really just taking the time to take ownership and not being a victim anymore. And this is not something that happens overnight. It's always a journey, and it's still a journey. But working with a counselor, working with always journaling, self-reflecting, and writing letters of forgiveness, not to send to people, but just for that reflection and to release other people in my life. That was major. And becoming self-aware, realizing, because you can read as many self-help books as you like and listen to as many podcasts, but if you're not aware of what you need to apply in your own life and what your insecurities, woundings, and weaknesses are, then it just becomes head knowledge. So I would say that was primarily what it was, and it has continued to develop into just stepping out of my comfort zone constantly. And my faith as well has been kind of the anchor throughout all of it.
And talk a little bit about root issues, because you talked about having those dark thoughts, and so there was something, I'm guessing there was something running in the back of your mind, thoughts or certain issues that were causing you to choose the same type of friends, the same type of relationships, maybe the same choices. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I would say, with all of us, even if we had the most amazing parents, amazing upbringing, there are always things that happen, whether it's intentional from our parents or not, that can cause us to believe certain things about ourselves or judge our parents for their actions or whatever it is that they did. And some of them are more obvious if it was an abusive upbringing, and some are not as obvious. I had amazing parents, and they raised me really well. At the time, the relationship for me that I felt I was mimicking was the relationship with my brother. So now we actually, have a great relationship, and we've spoken about this many times. But as a child, because the way that he was with me was that I always had to earn his respect, earn his attention, earn his approval. And I was the little sister, right? So all I wanted was for my brother to accept me and to love me. And I would try to give him things like my toys and my allowance. And I just wanted to please him so that he would accept me. And it never felt like it was enough, like I could gain that full acceptance. And it sounds, very watered down now, but at the time as a child, it was my whole world. And so I just felt that rejection always as a child with that main male figure in my life. And so when I started dating, those were the same type of men I would attract, as men that I would have to earn their respect, earn their attention. And it was like kind of like I was a victim or begging for that, and it was never received. And so once I realized, well, just by me doing behavioral modification or me changing and finding the right person instead of becoming the right person, it wasn't going to change anything. I would continue meeting him over and over again. And that's just one example in my life of relationships. So I really had to revisit through journaling and forgiveness and reflection over years of forgiving what had happened so that I wouldn't continue to attract that into my life.
Yes. And so in the beginning, when you were younger, you were attracting this type of situation. How are things now? How are things different? Like, how do you look at it differently? What has changed? I know you said you were doing the journaling and the everything, but do you have a different feeling, or are you thinking differently when you go out into the world and you're engaging?
Yeah, so I think two things. One thing I wanted to mention when it comes to the journaling, it's more so about, because a lot of times we'll have a story, something that's happened to us, and we think there's no need to talk about it or write about it because we know the story. But when we're writing, we're surprised at what actually comes out. So for me to sit down and write a letter without the intention of giving it to my brother and putting myself mentally in that space where I was a child and letting all of the hurt come back up and saying, when I was, 6 years old and you did this, like all I wanted was your approval, and it hurt so much at that time, and really getting it out and writing and feeling like I get to share my story, even though no one's hearing it. And writing this letter to him and then saying how I really wish that he would have treated me, how I wish that he would have approved of me. And then writing that forgiveness part, which takes a while to get to, but I release you for that because, and here's the part that I was going to get to with the perspective part, is realizing that every person in our life, whether for me it was my brother at the time or whether it's our parents, whoever it was, they were only operating the best that they could with the knowledge that they had from either what their parents taught them or from their own woundings and insecurities and beliefs of the world. So how can I be upset at someone for just acting from a place of being hurt? If anything, I have compassion, because if they hurt me that badly, they must have really been hurting. So coming from a place of compassion.
Yes. Oh, yes. That's amazing. So I wanted to ask you a little bit. You changed professions several different times.
Yeah.
And the one profession that you're doing actually now is something where you actually had to create your own business, where when it was the modeling, someone else was really in charge and you were working with the modeling, or so how did you make that jump to say, oh, I'm going to create my own business here? And how did you actually figure out how to actually get clients? And
Yeah.
you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that, so about a year and a half ago, I started my YouTube channel of actually putting out self-development advice on there. And it wasn't with the intention of anything except that I just wanted to help other people, which is still the same intention. But one thing I realized is that starting that is almost like building a resume in a way, and you're also constantly giving. And then that way, once you do open your own business or have your coaching, people are seeing how much content you're willing to just give. And then, for more deeper work, then they can contact you directly. I think for actually starting the business, I kind of just do what I feel led to do. Like I said before, I have a really strong faith, so I just follow that. And I just felt led to, I need to get certified as a life coach. So again, it's not something that you actually have to have a certification in Canada. I'm not sure about other countries, but I just wanted to get the certification. So I did that, and it took me about 7 or 8 months. And during that time, I just kept slowly building my business, slowly coming up with, okay, what do I envision for a name, or what am I envisioning for how I would like to set this up? And so I would say from last year, August, until April 2019, I was building the business. I was working on my skills of coaching, and doing a lot of free complimentary sessions for many people. And then from April until June, I focused on the business aspect of it. And my parents are also very entrepreneurial, so it just kind of came easy, I guess, starting the actual business. I think what's more difficult is kind of having the courage to put yourself out there.
Yes.
And I mean, with a coaching business, it doesn't require as much to put into it in terms of finances if you're not looking to set up an actual workspace. Mm-hmm. So mine is virtual. So that's the good part, is it doesn't take as much there. Yeah. But I think the bigger thing is like honing in on your craft and really practicing with other people, and then having the courage to put yourself out there as a coach.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that'll be helpful for lots of people. So you have mentioned your faith a couple of times. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk more about your faith and how that integrates into your life?
Yeah, definitely. I haven't actually talked a lot about it yet. I plan to do some YouTube videos on it eventually soon, actually. But so when I say faith, so I grew up in a Christian household, evangelical, and it's not something I followed my entire life. I think that there were times definitely when I was turned off from it and I didn't really understand. And then when I would say maybe 21, I started understanding a little bit more. And then it hasn't been until the last maybe 2.5 to 3 years of my life that I really just started living for God and understanding that really God is love, and he loves us, and he has a plan and a purpose for our lives. And it's way greater than any plan that we can even imagine. So for me, I stopped making my own plans and started letting him lead my life. And that's when I was trying to make my own plans, that was when I was kind of trying to control the modeling thing. And I wanted to control my destiny of modeling and all of that. And then I just finally surrendered and said, okay, your will, not mine, whatever you want from my life. And then that's when the pageant came up, which I would never have chosen that on my own, but it was an avenue that he wanted me to go through to develop me, to show me really what the greater path is for my life. And I believe that he's the one that should put it in my heart to say, okay, now you're going to do the certification for coaching. Now you're going to, start. Just everything has just kind of spiraled from there, and it's been amazing. And I just surrender my whole life.
Oh, thank you. And so why don't you share with us a little bit about how you work with people if they come to you and they want to do your mentoring program? I know you have a mentoring program coming up, so if you want to talk about that too.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll share with you my mentorship program first. So the mentorship program is actually starting on Monday, September the 30th. So coming up very soon. And it's a 12-week program. So it's going to go from next week, Monday, until the middle of December. And what inspired me, so I always knew that I was going to do a mentorship program, but I loved the structure of how it was set up, because I did someone else's mentorship program that was 12 weeks earlier this year, and it was on being single and empowered. And I loved the structure of it. So I wanted to do something similar. And basically every Monday at 8 p.m., I put the teaching out. And then for that week, we focus on that teaching, the exercises and the task for that week. And then we look forward to, okay, next Monday is the next one. So the first month is focusing on discovering who we are and really figuring out the vision for our life and what it is that we want in all areas of our life, and getting to know ourselves. Because sometimes we think we know ourselves, but sometimes, there's so much to know, right? The second month is going to be focusing on healing from the past. So that's where we're going to be looking at limiting beliefs, forgiveness, and healing those things. Because if we can't bring awareness to them and heal them, then those are the things that can keep holding us back. And the last month is blooming into our destiny, where we're actually going to put together our 3-year plan and practical steps to achieve these goals in our lives. So it's altogether a transformative program. I'm just pouring everything into it of how I was able to transform my life. And so I'm really excited for that. And then, Sarah, you asked about working with clients as well.
Yes.
With individual clients. And so that would be, I do my sessions over the phone. And I love to do transformative packages, so 3 to 5 sessions at once. And then after that, it's more maintenance. And basically, I have my clients fill out a client intake form, and you'd share with me all of the details of your past and history. And then that way, when my clients come to me with current challenges that they're facing, it's much easier for us to link them immediately to childhood root issues, patterns. And then that way, instead of me only giving them behavioral modification or practical steps, I'm able to do that as well as, but most importantly, focusing on how can we heal the past here.
That sounds awesome. It sounds like an awesome program.
Thank you.
So are you working mostly with people in their 20s, 30s? And if I can just get your views on, what do you think, are some of the most difficult things that people in that age group are dealing with right now?
Right now, yeah. I would say that my clients are primarily in their 20s and 30s. Most of them are female. And of course, I'm open to coaching anyone, but I do find that that's generally who's attracted to this type of work, with me at least. And I would say primarily in their 20s and 30s, or the clients that are coming to me, what I'm noticing is maybe lack of a vision for the future, or if they do have a vision, it's almost like, I'm not sure how to get there, and I'm not sure why something is holding me back. That's what I'm finding primarily. I also think that with the millennial generation, which I'm in as well, of course, I do find that with society right now, there's a lot of focus on materialism and exterior beauty, and kind of chasing this lifestyle of just wanting to accumulate more and kind of be an entrepreneur. And I think that that's really difficult on a lot of people, instead of focusing more so on pursuing purpose and meaning, and not feeling like you have to keep up with what the world is telling you that you have to keep up with. Mm-hmm. And there is just so much purpose in doing jobs that, maybe, not saying that you can't have your dream job. I absolutely believe in that, but I also believe there's purpose in small steps along the way, and in other jobs as well, not necessarily this, entrepreneurial lifestyle where there's an abundance of money, which again, there's nothing wrong with that at all. That's great as well. But it's just not that we're chasing that all of the time. And it's more so purpose and healing and becoming the best version of ourselves. And then those things will come as well.
Mm-hmm. And as a group, and I know you just work with a certain number of people, but you talked a little bit about like people's mental health and where they're at. As a group, do you feel like that, I want to ask it, are they more in positive, or a lot of them having some of those same dark thoughts, having same type of issues from childhood?
Yeah. So you mean kind of as a group in like a mentorship program, or just in general?
Just in general. Generation.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I kind of think that everyone to some degree struggles with that. I think that it's really, you know, it's really difficult to, I think that sometimes we've had great childhoods, but we can also say, yeah, I had a wonderful childhood and I'm very happy, but there's always things to uncover, to work through, and not to say to, it's not in a negative way where it's like, okay, let's find something negative or find some type of wounding. But there are things there that we can have, again, like I said, the most amazing parents, but they could have failed us in certain ways that they didn't mean to. And I think that to some degree, everyone has some type of wounding, trauma, insecurity, unforgiveness, resentment, something in their life, generally from childhood. And I think it's so normal that to some degree, everyone has these thoughts where we'll doubt and we'll fear and put ourselves down. And again, for some people, it's way more extreme than others. But either way, I think that everyone has a story to tell. And if this is a quote I've heard many times before, but if you've heard everyone's story, you couldn't help but just like your heart would break for them, or you would have compassion for them. So I think we can all, no matter where we are at in life, no matter how happy we are or unhappy we are, there's always work to be done.
Yes. And from your perspective, what gives you the most happiness and fulfillment in your life?
From my perspective, I would say, and it's going to sound really cliche, but just making a difference with any video that I can put out there, or a perspective that I can share with a client. I think giving people a hope and helping them to feel understood is what brings me a lot of joy. And it's like, even if you put out videos, let's say, or a podcast or whatever it is, I think just, even if at first you don't have a big following, it's so important to just do it anyways, because someone is listening, even if it's one person, right? Like,
yes,
really
I so agree. It only takes only one.
Yeah, it's like you have no idea who's listening, and the amount of people that are listening that they don't, comment on your stuff or like it, or even show that they liked it, but they did, and it changed their life. And so I think just trying to just be an example of everything that I stand for, living that in my own life and being an example, because I love to inspire other people. So anything in my everyday life, the way that I treat my friends or my parents, the way that I conduct myself, I want to be an inspiration where people say, I want to live more like that, or I want to step out even though I'm afraid, or I want to face this trauma that I went through. So inspiring, and then more directly doing it through videos as well, and coaching.
That is great. So if someone wanted to join your mentorship program or get a hold of you, I will put this in the show notes too, but how can they contact you? What's your Facebook and your...
Yeah. So for the mentorship program, it would be Now Bloom. So that's the name of my company, nowbloom.teachable.com. I'm just double checking the exact. Yeah, it's nowbloom.teachable.com. And then from there, once you click on that, it'll take you to the course. And in terms of social media, for Instagram, I use my personal one is the same as my coaching as well. So my Instagram is Sarah, Sarah, and then last name is Martens, Maartens. And Facebook is Sarah Martens as well. But if you also look up Now Bloom Life Coach, I have a lot of social medias going on.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today and for sharing from your heart.
Thank you.
You are such an inspiration, and I just love seeing people, younger people, much older than you, but younger people out there just, inspiring people and helping them to find their purpose and find why they're here. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really love what you're doing as well, and I love that you're making a difference.
Thanks. All right. We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay. Talk to you soon.